Welcome to Just Hair Me Out, a podcast about love, life, and hair. I'm Barbara. I've spent over 38,000 hours coloring hair.
Hi, I'm Demetra, and I've spent over 1,000 weeks with scissors in my hands.
With 50 clients a week in our chairs and 22 years on our feet, doing hair is not our hobby, it's our hustle. We've navigated salon politics and then opened salon suites of our own in 2020. We choose dogs over kids, skinny marks over beer, and we've only fired 3 clients each.
Welcome back to Just Hear Me Out. Today, Demetra's back in action with Barbara to assist. And Barbara's going to give us some secrets today on hair coloring. Yay!
So today we're doing secrets of a hair colorist. So these will be really interesting tips for people who do color or other hairstylists, and maybe just if you're a curious person about hair color. So my first one that I think is really useful on making hair look really natural when you're coloring it is, as hairstylists all know, when you look at hair color products, they're all numbered the same, which is 1 through 10, 1 being black and 10 being super light. So what people don't know necessarily until you really focus on color is that a half step blends, whereas 1 step doesn't blend. So say you were to look at somebody with really pretty natural hair color, the hairline is always a little bit lighter than the rest of the hair. So my point here is trick number 1 is when you do a single process on someone and they're essentially all one color, if you do a half step lighter right on the hairline, it looks more natural.
No way.
Yes. So you would be mixing up 2 separate formulas. So, and this really shows well if you're doing like a level 7, 8, or 9. So if you do a level 7 everywhere, if you mix 7 and 8 and just put that on the hairline, it tends to look more real. Like someone might think, oh, do they really color their hair? I don't know.
Can I ask you a question with that? My hair has a tendency to actually grab very dark around the hairline and it always looks inky. Is that part of it? Because those hairs are just more fine. So even though like I use the same color, is that why it always looks like darker around here?
Yes, because it's finer hair and it's more porous. So in that case, if I were coloring your hair and you wanted that more natural look where the front is just a little bit lighter, I would go a whole step on you, because that hairline hair, if it tends to go too dark, then you need to make a more drastic step than just a half. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, because some people, it's not as drastic. In my case, mine looks like ink, like it's a whole shade.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have to also know your customer. Like you said, someone like me might be a whole shade and someone else can be only a half shade to make it look more natural. Okay.
Yes, because there's all sorts of rules to hair color, but not everybody's hair follows them all the way, which is why I think people need to give hair colorists just a little grace, because some things you just don't even know until you try it.
Right. And do you also think, especially, like all women in general, but I feel like more our age group too, like the retinols and those, vitamin C's and exfoliants, like people are using them so much nowadays and putting it really close to the hairline. Do you think that affects it as well?
Yes.
Because it makes the hair more porous?
Way more porous.
Way
more.
All right, good to know.
Yeah.
All right.
So anything with an acid base, like in skincare, if you can, maybe just put it like a little further away from your hairline, because it'll probably like seep in just a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it is really drying out those baby hairs if you put a product with retinol, or what's the one people use for acne?
Salicylic acid?
Salicylic acid.
Salicylic acid, yeah. So but basically, like you said, any form of like acid, exfoliants, things like that, just try to keep it away from your hairline. Because also it'll change the color too. So if they went and just got their hair colored by you, it can alter what you just did, right? Technically? Yeah. All right, people. See, so we're learning things. So not just for professionals, customers too.
Yeah.
So,
and I liken this to, for a lot of us, if somebody's eyebrows, there's something wrong with them. When you look at someone's face, you might think, oh, something's off, but I can't really tell what. It's one of those things where, unless you're really looking at their eyebrows, you're like, oh, their eyebrows are out of whack or something. Where if your hairline is like a whole shade darker than the rest of your hair, it's like a dead giveaway. Your hair looks like it's been colored. You know what I mean?
Your eyebrows should always be a shade darker or same
Yeah.
shade.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if I've done this even on myself where I didn't fill in my eyebrows, and then I look at a picture of myself and I'm like, oh, I don't look as good. What is it? But it's like, sometimes you don't zero in on the eyebrows. It's just like, something's wrong. Anyway. Okay, so that's tip number 1. That's a big one. So, secondly, for hair colorists, just in case no one has told you, because I don't know that they tell you in beauty school, there's something called STB drops, and it stands for Stop the Burn. That is an additive that you put into hair color if someone is always feeling like the hair color burns their scalp. Used to be for like, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years, people would put Sweet and Low, the pink stuff.
I remember that. Yeah.
Into the hair color. A common mistake, though, is you need to put it in before you mix it up. If you mix the color with the developer and then add powder, it doesn't work as well. You want to, while the two things are separate in the bowl, stick it right on the color, all that powder, and mix it in like that. And so I've never tried STB the other way, but I would do that as well. Make sure you're putting it in the bowl before you mix it and blend it.
Why do you think some people, their scalp burns more than other people?
I think it's dry. It could be sensitivity, like an allergy.
Okay.
I'm going to get into that a little bit as well because, I recently was looking up, I thought to myself, why is it that sometimes I stain people's skin to the point where I just can't even get it off? Because
that happens to me. My skin is like that.
Okay. In addition to things that I can be upping my game on, which is getting more brave with barrier creams. So when you have a barrier cream, the whole point of it is that you can put it into the hairline and put color right over top of it, and the color will still grab onto the hair.
No way.
Yeah.
It'll penetrate through that.
Yeah. Because the problem is, like, if you're just using, like, Vaseline or something, it can coat the hair. And then if you put hair color on top of that, it's keeping the hair color from getting to the hair, right?
Right, that's what I'm saying. But aren't most of those hair barrier creams, I mean, the one I have looks like a Vaseline stick. It's very greasy.
There's Poly 8 and there's one by Fermar. And those are meant to be where you can put it into the hairline all the way. And then put hair color on top, the hair color is still going to take.
Okay, so you need to know which one you're using in order to do that. So to all the colorists out there, there are ones that it will not cover over it. Anything that's with like a Vaseline base is what you're saying.
I believe so. If you were to use Vaseline like at home, I think you would want to be really careful not to get it on the actual hair.
Right.
Because when people do it at home, they could get pretty messy.
Yeah, for sure.
So barrier creams are a huge deal.
Right. So there's barrier creams out there that will keep you from staining, but will help still penetrate the hair even if you got it into the hairline.
Correct.
I want one of those. Which brand do you like?
There's Poly 8, and then there's one by Fermar. You should get the Fermar one. It's easier to get your hands on.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Okay.
Poly 8, I believe you have to get from their company. I don't think they use a distributor, which makes it more
harder
difficult.
to. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Understood.
Awesome. And with that, I wanted to point out, people may or may not realize, even if you've been using hair color for years, you can actually just develop an allergy. You know, kind of goes along with how your body's always changing, and every 7 years it seems like a bigger change, like 7, 14.
Because you know,
21.
at 7 years, our cells do a complete turnover. Did you know that?
Yes.
Complete. That's why they say, totally different subject, but like trauma, any relationship breakups, anything within 7 years, no matter what, you're good.
Oh,
just FYI.
I never knew that. I would never thought of that with trauma and stuff.
Okay, you know what? Hold on.
Wow.
We're not going to talk about it today. We are going to talk about the 7-year, a different podcast. I'm writing it down so we don't forget. The 7-year cell turnover. Because I actually been listening about this for the last couple weeks. About this whole, how it creates different proteins and so forth. So I'm not going to, like I said, mention it right now, but we should definitely have a talk about this. Because this affects health, sense, allergies, traumas. I mean, everything gets shifted, okay?
Yes.
To be continued with that.
I'm excited about that.
That's going to be a great episode, I think, because there's a lot of information out there and people don't know about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and in line with that, I wanted to point out, I was going to talk about this in another episode as well, but for hair colorists, and I made this mistake recently, so learn from my mistakes. Always, always, always keep on hand Benadryl in your salon space. And I'm laughing because a couple weeks ago, it wasn't like a dire situation, but I was in Demetra's room like, hey, do you guys have Benadryl?
Oh my God, that's right. Wait, what was that for again? What happened?
Sometimes, well, like I said, people that you've been doing hair color on for ages, like they could just, one day it really itches or it looks like they're getting a little bit of a rash on their hairline. And it's a reaction, and it's kind of like a fine line of like, okay, tell me if it's so much that we need to just wash it off, or can you wait?
So
it's hard
do
to
you
know.
right? So do you recommend like an actual like Benadryl pill or Benadryl cream?
Pill.
A pill. Okay, to take it internally to stop the. Okay.
So, and if somebody had a big reaction, I would like hurry up and wash it off and give them a pill, because there can be like actual respiratory stuff too. But you kind of have to trust the person on exactly how much they're feeling. Okay. Last thing. With the staining, one thing I learned, in addition to, there's a few things I want to be better about, such as, like, as soon as I'm finished applying, I like to try to go back and clean up the edges as much as I can with color remover, like while it's processing. Also, I was reading, and this makes total sense, if the client, if the person getting the hair color is dehydrated, their skin will stain way worse, will not come off.
So give them a bottle of water while they're sitting in their chair getting color.
Yes.
No,
and
seriously.
Make sure you're drinking water. Make sure you're hydrating before you
get your hair
going
color.
to your hair
if you're worried
appointment.
about staining and you have a big event coming up, make sure you're well hydrated for more reasons than one.
Yeah.
Cocktails too later.
That's true. And also, it's a big thing. I've talked about this in the past. We want our clients to come with dirty hair, meaning not freshly washed, in the sense of that's going to help it to not stain too much. Some people actually get bothered by the fact that the hair color stains their scalp underneath their hair, and other people love it because they're like, oh, my hair looks more full.
It looks dense, like, because you can't see the scalp at all, so it just looks like extra full.
Yeah, I actually like
I'm
it
one
myself.
of those people.
Me too.
Yeah.
But that will really help, because if you have a little bit of your natural oils, and that's another thing for any sort of itching, sometimes it's because your scalp is dry. If you have plenty of natural oil going on, that'll be a nice buffer for your scalp from the color.
Okay, I like it. These are good tips, Barbara.
These
good
additives
stuff.
make a big deal, like when you put them into the hair color routine. All right, gray coverage. Tip number 3. When you put on hair color, if you put it on too lean, you don't really want to see the hair strands sticking out in between the color. Like, it needs to be enough color that it's covering everything. Does that make sense? So that if you don't, the hair color it'll look kind of lean, like a little transparent. And I think we talked about this before. I know it's controversial, but I took classes where they referred to it as anorexic hair color. Like you're just putting it on like way too little.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I should cut that one out.
So don't be, no, not at all.
Don't be stingy with the color.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's true. And like, also when people say they need, you may have seen this in the past with gray coverage. Some people put perm papers or foil or plastic along the hairline because people will say their hairline doesn't take well. Sometimes the hairs on the hairline, especially if they're white, are pretty strong, and they will kind of like go in the direction they want to, not sit down, like lay down into the color. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So those perm papers or plastic or foil are pushing them into the color. So keeping it to where it's all the way around the color, it's totally immersed, because it needs to sit in that to grab all the color.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing that I think they teach us in beauty school, but it's a huge help in my situations where if somebody has gray that's hard to cover, you really do need to leave it on longer than half an hour. It should be like 45 minutes. It will keep going. And also, so my main point here with this is if you put a little bit less developer in than color, because color has ammonia in it, in the actual tube of the color. And so if the ammonia ratio is just a little higher, it'll often cover that gray that's hard.
Yeah, you get better coverage.
Yes. Okay, last major one, butterfly highlights. Have you ever heard that term?
No.
So this is in reference to when a person has had highlights a lot. Say they're a little too blonde.
Okay.
If you want to put dimension in, but if you want it to be seamless, butterfly highlights get rid of lines of demarcation. Let me put it that way. Because sometimes people are so highlighted that if you don't put enough highlights in there with them, you can see where the last touch-up was.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
It's almost like looking like a single process then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's my girl.
Hey, girl. What's her name?
Trixie.
Oh, shit.
Because she knows all the tricks.
Don't want the tricks?
Okay, if you're just listening, I've got my mannequin out. I just want to show this to Demetra.
Okay, let's see.
So, say here's my little section, and I don't have a comb. I'm using a pen. Sorry. But
You're so talented, Barbara.
Boom.
Can use anything.
Say, like, this is a standard highlight, and, like, I'm going to highlight this bit, right?
Okay.
You might just leave this part out.
Okay.
But say this whole entire section, I haven't put anything down. I'm going to foil both of them. This one's going to be light, and this one's going to be dark.
Okay.
So this whole section will be colored, and it's going to blend.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That is very cool.
Yeah. The only downside with that is that sometimes it's hard to keep the highlights super close to the scalp because you've got two foils going on at the same time right next to each other.
Right. You're taking from the same section different hair to separate it. Yeah. So if it's someone who wants it, like the highlight really close, it might be hard, but that would be great for people that love like a little root smudge or don't mind a little more dimension.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly that's what they want if you're having to do this butterfly effect. Clearly they need it, right? So,
yeah.
I mean.
So I just want to try to explain in case anyone's not watching. So if you were to take a little slice of hair, and that slice of hair is what you would be weaving with the tail comb to highlight, you would usually weave and then you drop out part of it and you just highlight the top bit that you're holding still. So in a butterfly, you take that slice, everything is going to get colored. You do a weave, and the bottom part is going to be one color, top part's going to be another color.
So nothing basically gets dropped out
of that slice.
Right.
Yes.
Very cool.
All right. And along with that, in the sense of like not leaving lines of demarcation, I just wanted to say one benefit of going to the same colorist all the time is, for me, I find that lowlights, when you put them in, artificial lowlights on top of really highlighted hair, tend to kind of go brassy or not hold really well, especially if someone's in the sun. So as a colorist, I think it's really important, if you can, to leave the low light color as their natural color, if possible. So when you go to the same hair colorist, that person will do all the partings the same way when they're parting sections and whatnot. And then my goal is to, if you have 2 inches of outgrowth, I'm only coloring, like when I do a weave, I'm only coloring 2 inches of that hair, and then the rest gets left out. Because you're picking up existing highlights and touching it up rather than just taking new sections of hair and highlighting that from the root to the ends.
Which can cause more damage as well.
Yeah. So just a couple side notes, because those are my 4 main categories that I could think of now anyway. And I wanted your input on this. So one thing that's really fun about balayage is that when you're brushing on color and putting it where you want it, you are creating kind of like what you do with makeup, where light comes forward and emerges and dark recedes. And so with balayage, you really want to use that to highlight areas of the face or not. So for example, if somebody has like a wide neck, and most of us don't want a wide neck, you want the hair right next to the neck to be dark.
Dark, right.
Because it's going to recede. Just like when people do contouring with their makeup. Like often the outside of the face is like darker and blended.
It goes the same for hair cutting too, where, those shorter pieces are going to lie on someone's face, near their cheekbone. You want to accentuate this, not, some people don't want it below the chin.
Yeah.
Give or take.
That's a good point. The haircut is a big deal for face shape, right?
Right. Yes, absolutely.
And playing with eye color for choosing hair color, I think it's really fun. Like if somebody has green or hazel eyes, often like a red violet, like a mahogany, looks really striking on them because it makes their eyes look more green. And then bright blue eyes. If somebody has kind of, what is the right word? Like beige,
that icy blue? Are you talking about icy blue?
Icy blue.
Yeah.
And like kind of creamy complexion. One thing that looks awesome, which is not for everybody, I know, but one thing that looks awesome is really bright red, like red, red, red.
Really?
Yes. Like kind of a cooler tone of red. And I'm not talking copper or orange or anything.
Right.
Bright red. I'm going to send you pictures. It is so pretty. Love it, love it, love it.
Wow.
And people don't always think of that, because sometimes when you think icy blue, like you think, a nice blonde, of course, goes nicely, as well as like soft,
I'm
natural.
thinking an ashy, soft brunette.
Oh,
That's
that
what I'm
too.
thinking would be beautiful.
And you kind of got to play with what their natural color is and what's going to be sustainable.
Right. Because the color in their skin tone matters also.
Yes, definitely. And I think the absolute worst look is when someone has a lot of pink in their skin and then their hair is like orangey or brassy.
Almost the same color as the hair.
Yeah.
It's just like blends too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a huge deal, again, back to the eyebrow thing, where like, people will look and say, something's not right. It doesn't look great, but they don't know why.
Sure.
If you were to take a black and white photo of somebody, if their hair and their skin are the same level of light and dark, it always looks bad. Here's an example. Somebody who has a lot of pigment in their skin, like say, I don't know, darker than you.
Halle Berry.
Halle Berry, or even like, I'm thinking like Puerto Rican skin.
J-Lo.
Yes, someone like J-Lo, if their hair is like dark blonde, it looks wrong.
Actually, I was going to say that earlier about J-Lo.
Really?
Sometimes, yes. Sorry, people, I was chewing a piece of ice. Sometimes I look at her and I can't stand it because I'm like, her hair just looks so brassy. And I'm like, that's what it is. Her hair and skin is like the same color.
Yeah.
It does not, it's like, girl, throw a few more highlights in there or throw some low lights. Give me some dimension. There's like it's very flat, right?
Yeah.
She's actually a perfect example of, and don't get me wrong, I love J-Lo. I love me some J-Lo, but her hair color and skin tone they don't complement.
Yes. Well, and it's just like how nature goes. People with darker complexions have really dark or black hair versus like even if you think of Scandinavian people, like they have light blonde hair, but their skin is even lighter than that.
Right. True.
Anyhow, food for thought. So we may have a part 2 to this, but these are my major hair colorist secrets.
I like it. It was good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. And if anybody has questions of what I would do as far as hair color, send us an email or comment on our social media. I would love to hear your questions.
Yes. Sounds good.
All right. So like, subscribe, follow, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe or follow. And please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Lastly, follow us on social media for clips of past and future episodes. All our accounts are listed in the show notes below. Thanks so much for listening.